Hey everyone, welcome. This is WYD Rocks, a collaboration between
Welcome.
worldyouthday.com and WYDcentral.org. My name is Dario Mobini, joined by my good friend Deacon Pedro, all the way from Toronto. Welcome. Glad to see you again, my friend. Another beautiful day.
I think you need to start saying that you're all the way from Atlanta because, for all you know, all our viewers are like in Canada.
That's true. Well, that's true. Or
That's
our
true.
viewers are in Pakistan or
Yeah,
Afghanistan or
or
France or
Australia or somewhere,
Tunisia or yeah. I
Slovakia. So all the way
exactly.
from Atlanta, and my good friend Dario Mobini, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia.
From the south of the United States of America, yes. I like to also hide the fact that I may be in Europe right now, but nobody knows. Not this time.
Ooh, no,
Not
not
this
this
time.
time. We can tell by your classroom decor behind you.
That's right. My beautiful, blessed, pure Georgia wall, which is
Yes,
going to go into my office eventually. We'll
yes.
get to that point. But today,
Yeah.
today being November 8th, and today this show is going to be coming up right to you guys as of today. We are talking about volunteering at World Youth Day.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know. What does it mean? We've talked about this before because or maybe I imagined it, but I'm pretty sure that I've said that for people who've already been pilgrims, this is, and you want to go to World Youth Day, but you feel like, yeah, I already been a pilgrim twice. I don't know what to do. This is a great next thing to do. Become a volunteer, and you can volunteer for the week. You could probably volunteer just for part of the week, but for the whole week, or you could go for 2 weeks. I know that there are different packages um, uh, that you can find out at the Lisbon 2023 website. But I don't know, Dario. Before we get into the kind of the practicalities of
Yeah.
how to become a volunteer, maybe we should talk a little bit about why. Like, what does it mean to be a volunteer? So let me throw that
Yeah,
question at you first.
sure. So why be a volunteer? Well, first and foremost, realize that World Youth Day itself is a massive, massive event that cannot be done by just one or two single people or an organization that is run by all employees. Because let's be honest, it's run by a nonprofit organization, which is the Catholic Church. We don't make profit from it. Actually, we lose funds from it. And it's totally worth it because you're doing an event that will benefit not only the young people that will attend it, but the country as a whole, the vocation boom that will come from it, the evangelization efforts that will be sparked from it, and the idea that we're coming at a place where a country is getting an economic boom, but at the same time at a cost, right? All those people that are needed to make things run, majority of them are volunteers. And I think people realize like the benefit of having an event of this magnitude needs those who actually want to invest their time and talents and treasures. We hear that term being referred so much into the Catholic Church with stewardship, right? Time, talents, and treasure. Well, to be good stewards of our time, talents, and treasures, we need each other's gifts to be able to host an event like World Youth Day. And
Yeah,
so the why really comes down to is like, think of like what our blessed Lord said about the laborers in the vineyard. The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. We need the laborers in the vineyard. So let's pray for the laborers to come and to share their gifts and talents so that we can make this
absolutely,
opportunity a great one.
absolutely. And what a
What
great
would you add
way
to that?
to, I mean, yeah, no, it's a good, I mean, like I'm a firm believer in that. Obviously, you can't plan a World Youth Day only with volunteers. There are people who need to get hired and need to get paid because they're skilled and they're work. I mean, they're working 8, 10 hours a day, sometimes 6 days. Eventually, they're going to be working 6, 7 days a week. But what a great opportunity to get more people involved. So you could probably plan a World Youth Day with a very small paid staff, maybe 30 people, maybe a little bit more.
And
But
this is
then some,
temporary, mind you. This is not a
yeah,
full-time gig. This is going to be like a,
exactly,
two, a two-year
exactly.
gig, and that's it.
And then you have some part-time staff, and they're
Yeah.
getting paid because they're working. But then you need all these volunteers, and you can have what, three? 3,000, 5,000 volunteers eventually running this show, and it can be I shouldn't call it a show, but running the show. And volunteers are doing anything from what you think volunteers are doing, like you arrive at the airport and there's a little kiosk over there with a little World Youth Day sign, and there's somebody there with a little purple shirt that says voluntario in the
There
back.
we go. Look at
Yeah, and
that.
and they're just giving you directions. That's probably one of the more important volunteer jobs. You might be walking on the streets in the city, and there's volunteers with shirts handing out water bottles. Um, but there might be volunteers working in the World Youth Day office, and they're actually doing work. They're helping with accounts, or they're helping with procurement, or they're helping with organizing a particular event. You have a youth festival, so there might be 300 youth festival events happening throughout the week. All those events need a site and a site manager and a stage manager, and maybe sometimes the stage crew are volunteers.
And
The
first aid, all those guys are all
yeah, people,
volunteers.
yeah, exactly. People doing first aid. So I mean, everything from if you're someone who thinks like, I like to crunch numbers, well, maybe you can volunteer and crunch numbers as a volunteer. If maybe you can't travel to Portugal, but you can be, I mean, we know that they already need English speaking volunteers, Polish speaking volunteers, Spanish speaking volunteers wherever you are, so you can help do with the social media, or help with some of the promotions, or some of the messaging. Translation, if you're someone who speaks a second language and you're a good translator, maybe you can help them with translating. That's probably my biggest complaint ever when I look at all the English on the website. It's not the always the best English, and it's because it's being translated by volunteers, but that doesn't mean that they can't find a volunteer who is a professional translator, or someone who actually speaks good English who can help them. So you can be in Atlanta and be volunteering right now with their English translations, or with the English social media, or anything else. And it's a great way to, as Dario said, to give some of your time, your talents. We young people don't usually have treasure, but so we give time and talent in service of the church. And if you're able to actually volunteer in Portugal, whether it's that week, or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe 3 months, what a great experience to be living with other young people your age, from other countries, from around the world, and you're living together, you're volunteering together, you're working together for World Youth Day. That's a whole other pilgrimage experience. That's kind of like, that's why I said, it's like you've done like pilgrimage 101, take it to the next level, 201 or 301. Is to be a volunteer, and there's all kinds of things to do, and it's a great, if you can spend 3 months of your year volunteering. And they do get a little bit of a stipend. I think the long-term volunteers do. It's not completely free. They do get accommodation, and obviously a stipend for meals and things like that, so you don't have to pay for it.
And you
But
brought up long-term volunteers. Give us like a little insight. So, I mean, you've had your extensive background with working at Toronto as one of the official organizing committee, and then you also worked a little bit with Rio, and then you worked a little bit over with Panama. Like, what are the tiers or different levels of volunteers that you see at a World Youth Day?
yeah, so again, I don't know exactly how Portugal is doing it, but if you go to the website lisboa2023.org,
And let's do
and
that right now. Let's
yeah,
share the
you want to
website.
share the screen, and
Absolutely. Let's
and
share the
uh,
screen
and you
so
click
everybody can see.
on where it says participate,
1 second here.
and under participate, you'll see a volunteer tab. And in that volunteer tab, there'll be a little description of the volunteer, what a volunteer is, what there is to do. So there's a participate link, sorry, the participate tab at the menu. And then under there is volunteers. So let's go to, so volunteers is general information. And then of course, it's going to be the role of the volunteer. And that's also very, very general. But what you want to see is the central volunteer packages.
Oh, let's do that then. Then we need to go to packages of volunteers. So there's the central volunteer packages. There we go.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to register. So this is central volunteers would be for that week.
And by the way, just while we're on that topic of why you register is because they provide health insurance for you to cover you for the time that you are volunteering. Because you have to realize you're in a different country, something could happen, God forbid, but we want to provide those things for you. You get a t-shirt, you get credentials, you get health insurance, and most importantly, as Deacon Pedro mentioned, you also get lodging. So that's part of all that why you pay certain things. And you'll notice the common thing here is accommodation and insurance, right?
Yes, exactly. So another option, so this is the volunteer package for what they call central volunteers, I believe. And then there's another tab that are parish volunteer packages. If you go up, you'll see parish volunteers. And parish volunteers, this is not always a distinction that is made, but I know Panama made a distinction as well. And these are volunteers that are specifically assigned to a parish, because the pilgrims mostly will be arriving and they're hosted by a parish. So they're either staying with families in that parish or staying in the parish hall or the school that's attached to the parish. And there might be events, whether their catechesis is at that parish or other events that might be happening. So they need volunteers that are just working at the parish. But if you go back to the tab that just says volunteers, Dario, and if you scroll down, it talks about national, there's the little green subheadings, the national and international volunteers. So this is what I've been talking about. So what I call long-term volunteers. So there are volunteers from all over the world. Mostly, obviously, will be, in this case, from Portugal, but you can register online. Now, the best way to do it, however, is I would do it through your Episcopal conference.
Yes.
So if you're in Canada, if you're in the US, if you're in Germany, Australia, Spain, wherever you are, see if you can contact the World Youth Day coordinator in your country under the bishops. If you don't know where to do that, start with your parish, then go to your diocese. You're going to eventually move up the ladder there and find that, because most of the international volunteers are assigned through the Episcopal conferences. So, for example, the United States or Canada might say, "Hey, we're gonna donate 8 volunteers, international volunteers," and then the Episcopal conference from the country might pay for all those expenses. Organizations might also do it. So, like the Jesuits might say, "We're gonna send 40 of our scholastics, or 40 of our seminarians," or the Knights of Columbus will say, "We're going to send, all our college knights, or 50 of our college knights from all over the world or from the U.S." So you might want to go through your organization if you belong to a movement, an association, Focolare, the Neo-Catechumenal Way, or Opus Dei, even, or in the US, maybe you do work with Focus or Net Ministries. You can go through them and see if there's a way to go through the organization. And then through them, you register. But you can also register in this platform directly where it says registration platform.
But
Now,
just
course,
know that they're going to be putting you probably wherever they need you. So you're not necessarily going to be with people that you're close friends with if you're registering by yourself. But if you're registering with the Episcopal Conference, that might actually place you together in a group to assist specifically in need of that Episcopal Conference's language, right?
Exactly. That's likely what it's going to be. So if you're a volunteer from the United States or from Canada, you speak English or French, that's probably where you're going to be helping out. If you click on the registration platform tab there, it'll take you to the registration website. So this is it's a different website. This website is run by the dicastery in Rome, and
Right.
they manage all the registrations, and that's where you can register as a pilgrim. You can register or send a proposal to the youth festival, bishops, and then there's volunteers. Submit your application. If you click on submit your application, it'll give you the option for long-term or short-term or however that it might. I'm not sure how it's organized necessarily this time. This is a new, well, I think Dario, this is the first time that this platform is actually being used in its entirety. I think for Panama,
It's an entirety, yes, you're right.
Panama, it was still new. They were still testing it. They were still developing it for Krakow, but it's essentially the same platform. So it might be, if it doesn't allow you to click on long term or 3 months, it might just ask you what your availability is. And at that point, you can say, I'm available for 6 months, or I'm available. Some volunteers are there already, and they're international volunteers. I remember in Panama, about a year before, maybe a little more than a year before, I was down there, and all of a sudden we met all the 8 volunteers that came from the Shalom community. And that's just a community in Brazil that had come, and they had offered 8 volunteers. And in fact, that's how they started a Shalom community in Panama, by sending those volunteers to help with World Youth Day, and those were the first international volunteers.
It's
So you
awesome.
can see there's all kinds of options here of how to register, all the things that you can do, the skills that you have if you have any previous World Youth Day experience, and that'll help them assign where you're going to go.
And if you guys
Um,
remember what Deacon Pedro said regarding like bishops' conferences, this is exactly where the recommendation is. We were recommended by the bishops' conference or the diocese or your parish, a
exactly.
specific
Or a movement.
movement, or you're
Yeah.
just self saying, "Hey, I want to do this because I feel called."
Exactly. And if you're a little kind of miffed at the idea that if you're volunteering, why do you have to pay? As far as I know, long-term volunteers will not have to pay, um, because they're living in Portugal for, I think it's just for that week that they're asking people to at least cover a basic amount for accommodations, and as Dario said, the insurance, um, and meals, because it does get expensive. I mean, you got to pay for 5,000 volunteers.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
mean, look at this though. For a central volunteer, you're looking at accommodation, food, transportation, insurance, and volunteer kit is all included.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's 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 the food or accommodation. Food and accommodation, you're looking at 145 euros. That's not bad for 2 weeks and being in Europe. Like you're there for 2 weeks, mind you. They're going to provide all the food and lodging for you. That's a pretty big deal. The most important thing is you need to get around for 2 weeks. That in and of itself pays for it all.
Exactly. And if you want to compare, so if you registered as a pilgrim with the top package that gives you accommodations, food, transportation, insurance, and the pilgrim kit, it's 235 euros. But if you do it as a volunteer, it's 145. So you are offsetting a little bit of the cost. But something that Dario said that I hope that doesn't get missed. As a volunteer, you might be assigned at the airport, and that's where you're going to spend the whole week,
Yeah.
at the airport. So you might not be able to go to the opening mass, or you might not be able to go to the papal welcome ceremony. You may be able to, but you might not, depending on where you are assigned. You might be assigned at the papal welcome ceremony, but you're going to be at the gate taking tickets or something like that. So it is a little bit of a sacrifice. You are volunteering, and so that's why I'm suggesting that this might not be the. If you've never been to a World Youth Day, you probably want to go as a pilgrim first, and then go back as a volunteer now that you have had that pilgrim experience. But maybe not. Maybe this is how you want to serve, offer your service to the church as a volunteer for World Youth Day. And I'm gonna say, maybe Dario knows, I don't think there's an age limit. So technically 18 to 35 for pilgrims, but there's no age limit for a volunteer. If you're someone that maybe you don't want to do the whole pilgrimage thing because you're 53 years old, you've already been there, done that. But you want to go volunteer, like for me,
Yeah.
that's a great thing to do. I just want to go to World Youth Day and just hand out water bottles and talk to people.
Hey,
Like, what a
that
great
that's a
way.
big deal. Even if like you're in your 60s and you're like, I have some medical experience.
Yeah,
I'm retired, but man, there's this great event going on, and I'm Catholic and I want to be there. Great, you can volunteer as a medical professional, whether you give your services or as a doctor, if you have that ability to do so with the permission of your medical license, to be able to go and be present and just volunteer at the first aid tent. My gosh, I got to tell you, even
yeah,
those who work as professionals in that field in the country will volunteer their time
yep,
for World Youth
yep,
Day
yeah,
because
they
they
will.
know the value of their contribution. is amazing. And it has nothing to do with like sowing your seeds and giving money and giving all this energy. No, 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 no. It's just being part of something that you know
Yeah.
will transform the lives of many young people that will attend it.
Exactly. And it's not, I mean, if you're super skilled and you have lots of event planning experience, maybe you want to work at a World Youth Day. I mean, that's what I would do. But if you just want to participate, want to help out, you're not, event planner supreme of international. You didn't plan the last G7,
Yeah.
but you do have a skill and you have the time. What a great way to get involved. And I mean, we just had the papal visit here in Canada, and most of the people that worked that visit were volunteers
Yeah.
because we needed a small core of paid employees, and then everybody else volunteers, and mostly for that week. And a lot of them were handing out water bottles, um, helping people with directions, giving out the access passes and registration. Um, so it's a great way to participate when you feel like you don't have anything to contribute. You do have something to contribute.
Yeah.
So I think volunteering is a great way. And sorry, just since we're talking about prices, I just looked at, so if you want to be a parish volunteer,
Yeah, it's only 30 euros.
it's only 30 euros, but chances are that you're going to be at that parish, at least for the first couple of days, helping out. Now, the other bonus of being a volunteer,
I was going to say, I was thinking you were going to mention that eventually.
yeah, so you will have, there is the last thing the Pope will do when he's done the final mass on Sunday. He's going to take a little break, and then there's going to be a volunteer recognition or volunteer meeting, or the Pope meets the volunteers. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it's just going to be a gathering with the Holy Father, just with the volunteers. And so you will be able to be there, and you'll have your own personal encounter with the Pope just for you. You'll be able to be pretty close, because even if there's 5,000 volunteers, that's not a lot of people.
No.
It's less than 500,000 people. And so you will get, and a lot of, I know that one of my probably most meaningful memories from Krakow was that volunteer
I was going to
gathering.
say, I know you had a
Krakow.
chance to be in
Yeah,
that beautiful event.
I helped organize that event. Yeah,
Yeah.
in Krakow at the Tower and Arena, and yeah, I mean, that's probably the one event that I remember the most from Krakow was actually the volunteer gathering. So, uh, highly encouraged,
Yeah.
especially for people who've already been to a World Youth Day. This is one more thing you can do to support.
And look, and if you're feeling like, I don't know if I can help out, World Youth Day with this opportunity for a young person, for me to volunteer, maybe I can't volunteer at all this time, but you know what you can do? You can financially support someone who is in your parish or your diocese to go to World Youth Day. Or better yet, you can offer up your prayers. Like, I don't know how many times, Deacon Pedro and I have said, pray for World Youth Day, Lisbon. There's that World Youth Day Lisbon prayer that you can do. You can pray that every week at the end of an event or an activity, especially when it's an activity or an event focusing on young people and in the young church, because we need as much support as we can get to make this happen, to make this a beautiful opportunity for a grace-filled moment for the young church to come together and be, empowered to live out their vocation, right? To be those saints of this millennia, as what was envisioned by St. John Paul II in World Youth Day, was that we would empower young people to be living witnesses of the millennia, right? To go out and shout the gospel from the rooftops, and to be like Mary, right? To rise up and with haste, right?
Yeah.
I know, I gotta stop saying that.
You gotta do that, everything with haste.
Why not?
I love that idea. I love that idea, Dario, that, maybe you want to just quietly sponsor a young person from your parish to go to World Youth Day. Nobody has to know, but that's a way that you're volunteering in a way. I mean, you're supporting. Maybe you're volunteering with your parish to take the group to World Youth Day. That's another way you can volunteer. But if you wanted to volunteer specifically with the organization, then highly encourage, just go through the website and fill out the application form. And they need volunteers, so I don't think they're going to reject anybody.
No, but as long as you're a healthy, well-fit person, they want you there. That's the most important thing. And I got to tell you, before we conclude, just a reminder to all of you guys, look, we're not telling you guys that you have to volunteer. We're saying if you feel a need, if you feel called, don't be afraid. Respond to that call. Offer your services. They need you as much as we, the whole mystical body, need you. That's the beauty of the mystical body of Christ that St. Paul describes in his letters, right? That we're all members of that body. We're all connected by virtue of our baptism, and we all need each other in our walk, in our journey towards holiness. So, whatever contribution that might be.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about this maybe next time or the time after.
Yep.
If you're a musician or you have an artistic skill or you want that's a whole other way to volunteer. Don't apply to be a volunteer. We'll talk about the youth festival at some point. And so you can get a submission to participate in the youth festival.
While we're on that topic of musician, there is one announcement that I need to make. This came from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and from all of the English-speaking world. If you are interested in being part of the music video of World Youth Day for the English translation of the World Youth Day hymn, because you guys know the World Youth Day hymn right now is in Portuguese and Italian and French and German, but there's no English official full English song. There's this wonderful musician who we're going to have on our show very soon, Ivan Diaz. I'm sure you probably heard of Javier Ivan Diaz. We're going to try to get him on board at one of our shows, but I want to do a shout out to him and his work that he's doing. He's basically modeling volunteer casting. All you have to do is be willing to go to Miami in Florida to be part of this gathering. More will be given to you very soon, but we're going to have him on the show very soon. They want, as long as you can travel to Miami, doesn't matter how qualified you are. If you're a good singer, if you just want to model, if you want to be present, to just be there. They're looking for all sorts of people to help.
That's great to know.
The English speakers. So this is what he said, casting call, right? Anyone who's willing to be in Florida to be part of the official English language music video for the 2023 World Youth Day song. Check it out. They're going to record it this month, this November. If you're interested, please email Dario@worldyouthday.com and I will forward you to the person you need to talk to. Again, that's Dario@worldyouthday.com, Dario@worldyouthday.com, and we'll give you all the necessary details to get connected to that person.
Okay, nice. I like that. That's good news. Good job, Ivan. I'm not a big fan of different versions of the theme song, I have to say.
This is a guy coming from the Toronto having the multilingual.
Well, Toronto was the first one, and then Panama, we made a huge deal about the fact that it was going to be an international theme song and international music video, which is, by the way, it's a great music video if you want to check it out. We'll
put a link to that post, by the way.
Yeah, we should. That's a great music
video. And see if you can find Deacon Pedro in the video, because he's in there.
In there somewhere. Yes, I am. But yeah, there's a tradition that they do specific language translations and then, of course, videos. So what a great opportunity to participate if you can get to Florida and hang out with Ivan Diaz. That's super. I should send you an email, Dario, so I can go.
That's right. That's right. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of World Youth Day Rocks. I hope we answered all your questions in regarding to volunteering, how to volunteer, why volunteer, and the most important thing is don't be afraid. It is an opportunity that's worth a lifetime. Until next time, from all of us at worldyouthday.com and wyDcentral.org, God bless you. Have a blessed week.